original base. The so-called hidden foot. Karma-vibhaṅga. The analysis of deeds. Part 3. Cross-section of the Borobudur Temple. Locations of the panels. The location of the original case, the so-called hidden foot. The Karma-vibhaṅga panels. The so-called hidden foot of Borobudur refers to the monument's base level, also known as the Karma-vibhaṅga panels, which depict scenes illustrating the law of karma, how actions lead to specific outcomes. This level was intentionally covered shortly after construction, likely as an engineering solution to strengthen the structure and prevent collapse. Fully uncovering the hidden foot today would endanger the temple's stability, as the encasing stonework is essential to reinforcing the base. In 1890, the base was temporarily disassembled, and Casijan Chepas photographed the panels. These photographs are now displayed in Borobudur Museum, located just north of the temple. After restoration, the base was reinstalled, covering the panels again. Today, only a portion of the southeast corner remains visible to visitors. Karma-vibhaṅga. The deeds and their results. The Karma-vibhaṅga panels at Borobudur offer a rich narrative on the law of karma, demonstrating how good and bad actions shape future outcomes. The panels are divided into 5 key sections, each highlighting specific aspects of karma's workings. Here are the 5 key sections. Health and wealth. Rebirth. Permutations. Unwholesome deeds. Wholesome deeds. Part 3 is dedicated to the section Rebirths. Rebirths. These panels depict the karmic consequences that influence future lives. Depending on one's deeds, individuals may be reborn in various realms, human, animal, or even in hellish conditions. The imagery emphasizes the cyclical nature of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, showing beings ascending or descending through different states of existence. The section Rebirths is divided into 8 parts. Rebirth in hell, rebirth as an animal, rebirth in Yama's world, rebirth in the Asura world, rebirth in the human world, rebirth in heavenly sense worlds, rebirth in heavenly form worlds, and rebirth in heavenly formless worlds. The next 20 panels are shown depicting various rebirths and the corresponding deeds that led to these outcomes. Since the deeds are presented in more abstract terms within these teachings, the specific actions they represent must sometimes be inferred. It seems that many of these panels now display two sets of causes and effects, leading to a loss of the close correlation observed in earlier panels. This change may indicate that the sculptors were following a different text, or aimed for more flexibility in illustrating the deeds associated with these outcomes. In this video, an attempt is made to identify the various resultant hells. Rebirth in hell. Herein, what is the deed that leads to rebirth in hell? It is said: 1. Wrong living in body, speech, and mind through having severely corrupt thoughts. 2. A deed based on annihilationist view. 3. A deed based on eternalist view. 4. A deed based on nihilistic view. 5. A deed based on inconsequence view. 6. A deed based on a selfish doctrine. 7. A deed based on ungratefulness. 8. Bad deeds having immediate results. 9. Making false accusations against virtuous noble ones. Panel 86. Killing humans and animals leads to rebirth in hell. Although much of the detail on the right side is damaged, it is evident that the figures were engaged in battle, with one wielding a raised sword and striking down the other. They have been reborn in the reviving hell, where they continue to attack one another. To the left of center, a butcher is depicted slaughtering a sheep while a lamb looks on. The grim consequence is portrayed on the far left, where a figure is shown in hell, suffering the torment of having their head sawn in half. This punishment reflects the violence committed in their past life. Panel 87. Execution and entrapping leads to rebirth in hell. On the right, a queen observes as a person is executed by being trampled under an elephant. In the crushing hell, victims are subjected to being crushed to death by closing mountains, depicted in a stylized form at Borobudur. Just to the left of center, a man is shown smoking out small animals, presumably to kill them afterward. The consequence of such actions is rebirth in the fearful hell. Two scenes from this hell are depicted. In one, the individual is executed by a sword-wielding figure. In the other, two men are pierced through by sharp thorns from the trees. Panel 88. Wrong speech and action leads to rebirth in hell. The punishment depicted just right of center suggests that the act committed involved trickery or deception, indicating a form of wrongful speech. The consequence is rebirth in a hell where his lips are seared with a hot iron. To the left of center, a scene shows a man preparing to strike someone, likely his father or a person of high status. This action leads to his rebirth in the burning hell, where he endures the torment of being scorched and, as depicted, torn apart by birds and dogs. Panel 89. Killing animals and humans leads to rebirth in hell. Two men are seen preparing a fish and turtle stew, with the creatures being dropped into the boiling water while still alive. A similar fate awaits the wrongdoers in hell, where they will be boiled alive and struck with clubs if they attempt to flee. To the left of center, a man is about to kill a defenseless woman lying before him. As a consequence, he is reborn in the great burning hell, where he is cast into the searing flames. Panel 90. Drinking and engaging in debauchery result in rebirth in hell. On the far right, a group of revelers are depicted drinking liquor and engaging in drunken debauchery. As a result, they are reborn in a hell where they are immersed up to their knees in what appears to be scalding water. The scenes to the left of center are mostly damaged, making it difficult to discern the exact deed. However, the resulting punishment seems similar, though perhaps intensified, with the individuals being submerged up to their waists in boiling water. Panel 91. Encouraging violence and killing birds leads to rebirth in hell. Although the exact cause on the far right is unclear, it likely involves inciting violence of some kind. The result is rebirth in a hell where blades of grass, resembling swords, slice through his feet. Left of center, hunters are depicted using blowpipes and sticks to kill birds and animals. The consequence is rebirth in a hell where the trees have sword-like leaves that cut through the victims who are reborn there. Panel 92. Adultery and murder leads to rebirth in hell. On the far right, a man sits asleep under a tree while his wife engages in adultery in the arms of another. The adulterer faces rebirth in a hell where dogs tear him apart, and trees with blade-like trunks inflict further torment. Left of center, a murder is depicted as one man sword raised, strikes another who falls away. On the far left, the punishment is rebirth in a hell where the victims are submerged up to their necks in boiling waters, pushed back in whenever they attempt to escape. Rebirth as an animal. Herein, what is the deed that leads to rebirth as an animal? It is said, 1. Wrong living in body, speech, and mind through having intermediately corrupt thoughts. 2. Deeds arising from various types of lust. 3. Deeds arising from various types of hatred. 4. Deeds arising from various types of delusion. 5. Causing regret to those gone forth, mother or father. 6. Deriding animals. 7. Similarly, it is said endeavoring in deeds like the cow vow and dog vow offerings, and endeavoring in preparing this. Panel 93. Wrong living in speech or body leads to rebirth in the animal realm. The scene on the right likely represents a verbal misdeed of moderate severity. The depicted consequence for this action is rebirth as a bird. Left of center, a person is shown striking another with a stick, with the victim's hands bound. This scene appears to differentiate between the fatal assault shown earlier and this act, which causes harm but not death. The resulting punishment is rebirth as a quadruped, with examples including a horse, sheep, and cattle. Panel 94. Unknown deeds leading to rebirth as a garuda and naga. The sculptor's text included additional rebirths absent from our Sanskrit version. The unknown deed on the right led to rebirth as a garuda, shown by the 3 garudas under the trees. Similarly, the deed left of center is unclear, but the outcome, rebirth as a naga, is clearly illustrated on the far left. Since the scene seemed to transition from more severe to less severe actions, these were likely minor transgressions. Rebirth in Yama's world. Herein, what is the deed that leads to rebirth as a preta in Yama's world? It is said: 1. Wrong living in body, speech and mind through having a mind of revenge and anger. 2. Greed. 3. Dishonest greed. 4. Wrong livelihood. 5. Dying of hunger, thirst or anger. 6. Dying with a mind attached to possessions. Definition of a preta. A preta is a being reborn as a hungry ghost in Yama's world due to negative deeds. Panel 95. Wrong living leads to rebirth in Yama-loka. Yama-loka, the realm ruled by King Yama, is where beings are reborn as pretas. This designation fits the scenes depicted here. On the right, a couple is shown offering a seat to a Brahmin, while below them, someone intervenes to obstruct the gesture, indicating the rebirth being portrayed. Left of center, 3 men attempt to give a gift, but the intended recipient turns away, rejecting it. The consequence of obstructing such good deeds is rebirth as a preta, depicted on the far left with a distended belly and emaciated ribcage. Rebirth in the Asura world. Herein, what is the deed that leads to rebirth in the Asura world? It is said: 1. All wrong living in body, speech and mind, that is mild. 2. Conceit. 3. Great conceit. 4. Conceit regarding attainments. 5. The eye conceit. 6. Wrong conceit. 7. Well-performed deeds having wholesome roots, but which ripen in birth in the Asura worlds. 8. Everything arising from excessive passion, and having a bad character, but having wisdom as a cause. Panel 96. Conceit and wrong deeds lead to rebirth in the Asura world. On the right, 2 causes are depicted. On the far right, a person denies a request from those seated before him, likely out of conceit or a negative mental state. Between the trees, 2 figures engage in a fight, this time using only their bare hands instead of weapons, like sticks or swords. The resulting rebirth depicted on the left is as an Asura. Originally divine beings, Sura, the Asuras became anti-gods, Asura, after challenging the gods out of conceit and being expelled from heaven. This characteristic of conceit likely represents one of the causes of rebirth as an Asura. Rebirth in the human world. Herein, what is the deed that leads to rebirth in the human world? It is said: the 10 wholesome deeds, that are either well practiced, or poorly practiced. What 10? 1 to 3, the threefold deeds by way of body, not killing, taking what is not given, or sexual misconduct. 4 to 7, the fourfold deeds by way of speech, restraint from false, malicious and rough speech, and frivolous talk. 8 to 10, the threefold deeds by way of mind, being without avarice, having good will, and right view. Panel 97. Restraint leads to rebirth in the human world. On the far right, just left of center, and on the left, men are shown raising their hands in gestures of refusal. Unlike previous scenes, these gestures seem to indicate a rejection of overindulgence in food and drink. This practice of moderation is what sets them apart, leading to rebirth in the human world, though this outcome does not appear to be depicted on this panel. Panel 98. Refraining from verbal misconduct leads to rebirth in the human world. There are 5 scenes depicted. The 4 scenes on the left likely represent restraint from verbal misconduct, though the main detail discernible is that the central figure is acting in a demonstrative manner. On the far right, someone is shown making an offering to a teacher, possibly signifying the quality of being free from avarice. The resulting outcome, however, does not appear to be illustrated. Panel 99. Being without avarice leads to rebirth in the human world. On the far right, people are shown presenting offerings to a Brahmin, which might again signify the virtue of being without avarice. The significant wealth offered by the merchant standing beside a large jar of jewelry likely reinforces this interpretation, with the assumption that the king is the intended recipient. Meanwhile, others are seated under the trees, holding smaller offerings in their hands. Panel 100. Generosity and restraint leads to rebirth in the human world. A clear example of charitable acts is shown on the right, where money or food is being distributed to the poor. The Brahmin may represent a teacher, and the wealthy man making the distribution could be his disciple following the teacher's guidance. On the left, a prince is depicted with his arm around his consort's shoulder, turning away from four women nearby. This likely illustrates restraint from sexual misconduct. Rebirth in heavenly sense worlds. Herein, what is the deed that leads to rebirth in the heavenly sense worlds? It is said, the fully complete 10 wholesome deeds, which are the same as the previous list, but to perfection. Panel 101. Wholesome deeds lead to rebirth in the sense heavens. This panel likely depicts children showing respect to their parents through offerings and support, representing a general act of goodness, even if not explicitly stated. However, it could also portray a scene emphasizing freedom from avarice, regardless of familial ties. The indication that the reward is set in heaven comes from the celestial tree in the center, flanked by kinnaras and bags of riches beneath it. Otherwise, the depiction on the left, where a man meets a woman and takes her by the wrist, would offer little insight into the meaning. Panel 102. 10 deeds lead to rebirth in the sense heavens. The presence of the tree and kinnaras indicates that the outcome is rebirth in one of the sensory heavens. On the left, a hallowed figure is surrounded by consorts and attendants, now depicted as a deva following virtuous actions. A heavenly musician playing a large lute can be seen. The exact deed leading to this rebirth is uncertain. It could suggest an act of generosity given the servants carrying a cask, or it might signify the figure promoting restraint. Panel 103. Wholesome deeds lead to rebirth in the sense heavens. The scene on the far right depicts a dual action. A monk seated in a pavilion teaching 3 students, alongside 2 men distributing alms to the poor. The result is rebirth in a celestial palace in heaven. The depiction of the palace closely resembles a temple, as seen in other panels, suggesting a perceived connection between the two, a temple representing a heavenly mansion on earth. Rebirth in heavenly form worlds. Herein, what is the deed that leads to rebirth in the heavenly form worlds? It is said, the fully attained 4 concentrations, and from that, full excellence in the 10 wholesome deeds. What are the 4 concentrations? The 4 levels of deep meditative absorption represent progressive states of profound mental focus. The first level includes applied and sustained thought with rapture and pleasure as the mind centers itself. In the second level, thought ceases, leaving only rapture and a unified mind. The third level witnesses the fading of rapture, replaced by serene pleasure and heightened concentration. The fourth level transcends pleasure and pain, marked by equanimity and one-pointedness, achieving pure balanced awareness. Panel 104. Complete concentration leads to rebirth in the form worlds. In the center, between two trees, a figure is depicted seated in meditation, representing the practice of form concentrations. On the right, 3 individuals, led by a woman, are shown offering alms to 2 Brahmins, earning themselves significant merit. The 6 figures on the left are again gods in a heavenly realm, but not within the sense worlds, as indicated by the absence of scantily clad females. Instead, they are the asexual Brahma gods of the form worlds. Rebirth in heavenly formless worlds. Herein, what is the deed that leads to rebirth in the heavenly formless worlds? It is said, the 4 formless attainments. 1. The sphere of endless space. 2. The sphere of endless consciousness. 3. The sphere of nothingness. 4. The sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. There is the developing and making much of these attainments. Panel 105. The formless attainments leads to rebirth in the formless worlds. 4 monastics are depicted seated in a wilderness filled with trees, grasses, and wildlife, symbolizing the 4 formless attainments. Naturally, the meditators show no visible distinctions, as these states are entirely internal. The formless realms themselves, being devoid of physical form, are not represented by the sculptors. In certain pure lands within these realms, beings attain nirvana during their celestial existence, and do not return to the cycle of rebirth. This concludes the section on rebirths, covering themes such as rebirth in hell, rebirth as an animal, rebirth in Yama's world, rebirth in the Asura world, rebirth in the human world, rebirth in the heavenly sense worlds, rebirth in the heavenly form worlds, and rebirth in the heavenly formless worlds.